Hey everyone, it is Thursday, December 19, 2013, and right now we're going to talk all about the new Mac Pro, whether your iSight camera is spying on you, iOS 7.1 Beta 2, and Apple's new misunderstood ad. This is the iMore Show. Joining me, as always, we have the managing editor of iMore, and you're wearing a hat today, Peter. Is that the Nova Scotia Bison?
The Nova Scotia Bison, yes, indeed. For anybody who isn't in the know, this is the Bruins logo. This is the Bruins jersey. Bruins are playing Sabres tonight. I'm just representing my team. That's all.
But I've seen Dalrymple wear that, and he's nowhere near Boston.
You know, it's really interesting. Dalrymple is an anachronism. Jim Dalrymple from The Loop really loves the Bruins. I guess because they're the closest team to him that doesn't involve Quebec, and you know he hates everything from Quebec. Except for you, Rene. Except for you, he loves you.
All right, fair enough, fair enough. Also joining us, making his own Hattie appearance, the senior editor from iMore, Richard Devine. What town are you actually in, Richard? I keep forgetting the name.
I live in Lincoln. The proper Lincoln, though, in England, not the one in America, the fake one.
I think Lincoln was a dude in America, not a place.
Oh,
well, there's Nebraska, there's Lincoln, Mass. There's a Lincoln, Mass.
There's Lincoln Park. I've heard of them.
Yeah, I prefer them.
How you doing, Richard?
I'm very well, Rene. Hello, everybody.
And joining us all the way from Indiana, some part Indiana, our how-to app and all-around ninja editor, Ali Kazmuha. How are you, Ali?
I'm good, but I'm going to say I'm a little upset I didn't get the hat memo.
It wasn't a memo. It's just it's so cold in Montreal right now. It's been like minus 20 Celsius all week, which I think is like minus 2 or 3 or 5 Fahrenheit.
It's been pretty cold here. Today's kind of like a heat wave. It's like 30-something. I don't know what that is in your weird temperature.
How is my temperature weird? 0 is the freezing point of water. 100 is the boiling point of water. What is Fahrenheit based on?
I don't know.
Nothing.
The length of the king's foot.
Maybe.
Some dude just made that up. I think Fahrenheit is actually the temperature at which a new Mac Pro fan runs, Peter.
There we go.
So it finally launched. It is here. You can go. You can't get delivery right now, but you can go to apple.com and you can order the brand new Mac Pro. Peter, our long, was it 2.5 years of suffering is finally at an end.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, okay, in fairness, the Mac Pro was only discontinued earlier this year, the old aluminum thing. But, of course, long-suffering Mac Pro owners have wanted Apple to do something to the Mac Pro for quite some time because, I mean, it was, 10 years old. The platform upon which the Mac Pro was built, it actually predates Apple's conversion to Intel processors. It's essentially the same chassis with a lot of internal reconfiguration that the Power Mac G5 used. It's finally here. We got our first glimpse of it 6 months ago at WWDC, and Apple teased us again in October, said they'd start taking orders for it in December, and then teased us one more time yesterday when they said that today would be the big day for orders to be taken. And orders were taken, and Apple announced initially on their website, on their store website, that purchases made on the App Store that day would be fulfilled by December 30th. Now that date is slipped to mid-February. So people who maybe didn't check news first thing, who wanted to get a Mac Pro, are going to be waiting a little while before they can get their hands on one.
That was me. I had a bunch of stuff to do this morning, which I'd rather not talk about because it frustrated me no end. Oh, Peter, could you go on talking about this? My phantom plumber is actually calling.
Yeah, sure.
Tell us about options.
So the Mac Pro is now available for order, and people should start seeing them in the next couple of weeks. The Mac Pro starts at $29.99, and that amount gets you basically a quad-core machine running faster than any other Mac that you can get, equipped with 256 gigabytes of flash storage and 12 gigabytes of RAM, and ATI's D300 FirePro graphics, dual graphics cards. Pretty nice configuration, all things considered, for an entry-level Mac Pro. There are some options, though, and I mean, Richard, you were telling me earlier that you got a fully loaded Mac Pro into some obscene amount of money. It was like something like £12,000, right?
Pretty much. I think it was about £11,500 when you just go around, tick every single box, and add a monitor on the end. Yeah, that is heavy. Obviously, we have to pay 20% sales tax on everything, but yeah, £11,500. I don't think I'll be getting one just yet.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the use case for these is pretty specialized. But anyway, there are a ton of options that you can go for. You can speed up the processor with, or you can improve the processor by replacing it with a 6-core. That's in the $39.99 model, 8-core, or even a 12-core model. And you can improve the graphics as well, from the D300 to the D500 to the D700. You know, somebody asked a really good question when I posted my buyer's guide yesterday, and that's how good does this thing run games? I think that's the wrong question, though. I think that if you're thinking of this in terms of how does this bench against like a fully equipped Alienware system or a custom gaming rig, you're not thinking straight with this, because this thing is a real parallel processing monstrosity. It's designed for pretty specialized use. If you're running video software, for example, and you're doing a lot of effects rendering, if you're doing 3D visualization, if you're an architect, or if you're doing genetic modeling, if you're a musician and you're working with Logic Pro or another app like that, and you've got a lot of tracks laid down and a lot of effects, a lot of filters that you want to use.
If you're a guy English or Chris Licio and you just want to see what you can do with that much OpenCL.
Right, exactly, and that's the key right there. OpenCL. OpenCL is the language that enables these applications to run massively parallelized on something like the Mac Pro. And the video graphics cards that are incorporated into these things are these massive parallel processing pumps. So if you're doing these sorts of very math intensive operations, you will see a huge performance increase, especially if your app is optimized for OpenCL, as Final Cut Pro is.
I saw a lot of people sort of complaining on Twitter that it didn't meet their workflow, and my take on it was this: it's like a Lamborghini. Like a Mac Pro suits your workflow the way a Lamborghini suits your commute. And what I mean by that is you will know instantly if this is going to help you. If you live on the Autobahn and work on the Autobahn, the Lamborghini is going to be phenomenal for your commute. But if you live in the suburbs in traffic, it's not going to make that much difference, except people will still see you in a Lamborghini.
That's exactly right. I think that a lot of people approach this the wrong way, which is the assumption that one hammer, that one hammer should suit all my needs equally well. That's just not the case. The Mac Pro is a very specialized machine for a specific type of user. If you look at it and you're like, these specs don't impress me, or nothing about this machine is what I'm looking for, move along. There are lots of other Macs to choose
Plenty
from.
of Macs for you to see here.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm not sure there was a lot of stock, because I can't believe, like, when an iPhone comes out, there's millions of people buying it. This they're making in small quantities in Austin. Tim Cook even tweeted it out. Hi, this is Tim. The Austin assembly lines are full production. The Mac Pro's coming tomorrow. And I think Mark Gurman was joking that all the ones you saw in the picture, like 7 of them, were what they had in stock. But they did push out fairly quickly in Canada, the UK, outside the US. They only began shipping in January. There was no specific date given. But this is not something, I mean, unless you're really spoiled, unless you're like Allie level spoiled. Hi, Allie. This is not something that's going to be under your Christmas tree anyway.
Yes, indeed, yeah. Well, especially considering that I don't think anybody's going to take delivery until the end of the year anyway.
No.
But, it is what it is. People who've gotten their orders in have gotten them, and some reviewers have already been seeded by Apple too. So we should be seeing reviews come online in the next few days, and I'm going to be very interested to see what they have to say.
Now, my dream system, if just window shopping, going there and ticking the little options. When I got the Nehalem Mac Pro, I went for, at the time I think the maximum was 8 core. I went for 8 cores, but very slow cores because I thought, massive parallel computing, and it never really materialized. And I wished I'd gone the other way. So if I were buying a Mac Pro, which I am not right now and can't because they're sold out and they're not shipping in Canada till the weather gets warmer because Austin is warm, whatever. I would be going for the 4-core version as fast as I can get. I would increase the RAM because it would be a pain in the ass to do later, so I would go for 32 gigabytes. I would increase the hard drive. I don't think I would go to a terabyte, although it's really tempting to get that much fast storage. I'd probably go to 512. And I think that would be, I see, Peter, the only thing I don't know is whether I would increase the graphics card from the low-end one to the mid-range one. I don't think the high-end one is different enough from the mid-range one for me, but I think the mid-range one is compelling a little bit.
Yeah, you can certainly make that case. I mean, the thing to remember, I think the most is that of all of the options that you have to choose from, the CPU and the GPU, the graphics cards, graphics boards, are the ones that you can't upgrade. Those are the ones that make up the core of the machine. Everything else, in terms of storage and in terms of memory, is actually removable. Now, as far as storage is concerned, we'll see, because Apple's got its own PCIe-based flash memory interface. It doesn't conform to a specific industry standard, so I haven't seen a lot of upgrades, for example, for the MacBook Air or the Retina MacBook Pro, even though those things don't actually use memory that's soldered, or storage stuff that's soldered on the motherboard. That's an actual daughter card that's in there, and they have been upgradable in the past. The Mac Pro uses standard industry RAM, though, and you can save yourself hundreds by just getting that thing equipped with whatever the standard stock is for that configuration, and then going to OWC, Other World Computing, or Kingston Direct, and ordering memory from them for a lot less money than what you're going to pay Apple. Apple really does charge a premium for RAM, so think carefully about that before you place your order.
And you can lift the Vader hat up, right, and get at the Vader skull and then just put the RAM in.
Right, exactly. You just twist it around and pop the top off, and you've got access to the guts.
It really is a next generation cube.
Yeah, it really kind of is, but I think it's going to do a lot better than the Cube did.
So one of the things that Richard and I noticed in the morning was there is a 4K display. We've heard, like a lot of other sites have heard, that Apple is working on a 4K display, but it's not ready yet. So you can get a Sharp display from Apple. You can't just go to the Apple Store and buy it separately, though. You have to get it bundled with the Mac Pro, and that was interesting to me for a couple reasons. First is it only lets you apparently choose one of them. Now, granted, they're like $3,600, but the Mac Pro, as far as I remember, supports up to 3 of them, and you just can't pick 3 of them. And also, if you buy it now, there doesn't seem to be an option to get the display later, and that seems like not the optimal use of the hardware to me.
Well, we'll see. I think that 4K displays are very rarefied. I mean, the 4K display that Apple is selling, the Sharp TNK321, is a $3,500 display. I don't see a use case for a lot of people to grab a whole bunch of them.
Al Gore needs 3 of them. 3 of them, I said. Maybe
so, but it's he's cutting an inconvenient truth too, and needs a massive wraparound display.
4K TweetDeck.
That's right. 12K. 12K. He needs 12K. But
I almost wonder if it's a constraint issue to start with.
It could be a constraint issue, and it may be something that Apple will add on later in the store. I mean, Apple does carry third-party products, and they're available for order. But in the same token, when you configure to order a Mac Pro, they give you external storage options as well. Like you can get a Promise Thunderbolt 2 RAID system. So I think that they just do that to keep it as simple as possible. And you know what? The TNK321 isn't the only 4K display that you can buy right now. Asus has one. Dell has one. Mm-hmm. You can go out and actually save yourself a lot of money, again, just like with memory, if you shop around before you make a purchase. So I think Apple's offering that as a convenience item for people who are buying the Mac Pro and just want a box to show up, or a few boxes to show up at their door so they can start getting working right away.
It's for Alex Lindsay so he can equip the entire Pixel Core in one day.
That's exactly right.
So Yeah, I think my take is identical to Peter's. I mean, right now, this is a very edge case. It is literally a hypercar of computing. People who want it are either know they absolutely need it or just want it because they've wanted a new Mac Pro for so long, damn it, and they're going to get it now. But I'm like Peter. I'm interested to see what the first reviews are and where it really helps, because I'm so impressed with the Retina MacBook Pro for rendering video that I'm not as convinced as I used to be that I need a big desktop machine anymore.
Well, it's a little desktop machine.
A little desktop. Well, it's like the genie of the lamp, right?
Right, exactly. Infinite cosmic power, tiny little living space. You know, and by the way, to clarify what Rene said before, he said hypercar, not hypercard.
No, Yes, you Mac nerds. I didn't say hypercard.
Indeed.
You never had a PC like me. Bum 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 bum. All right, so moving along so we can get Ali and Richard back awake and back part of the conversation. Ali, iOS 10.9.1 is out, and it claims to fix the Gmail pain and a lot of the Mail.app pain. You went ahead and looked at a bunch of Mail apps anyway. Are you happy with how Mail is working yet, or are you still, glancing around for alternatives?
I've been using AirMail now for about, I don't know, a couple months. I can't see myself going back to Mac Mail again. I had a situation during OS 10 Mavericks. Again, it's a beta, so you get what you get. But it ate my mail. It just ate my iMore mail like for breakfast. So I mean, literally, there was nothing.
That was her excuse. Ali, where's the article? Mail ate my mail.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what happened. So I think that kind of scared me away from even wanting to open Mac Mail since then. So I haven't.
Peter, did it do anything for you? I've had no. This happens to me a lot. I've had no problems with Mac Mail. I always just use standard Gmail IMAP. I never remapped any folders. It works as well for me now as it's worked since Tiger, I think.
Well, I had a lot of problems with 10.9. 10.9.1 fixed them. What I was seeing is, and Rene, I think you were having this problem too, actually, where for whatever reason, your Gmail wouldn't queue correctly. You would see long delays before getting new mail, and it seemed like if you quit out of the app or put your machine to sleep and woke it back up.
That's true.
Yeah, then that would fix it. Otherwise, you might be waiting hours for new mail. I remember there were a few times since 10.9 came out, Rene, where you pinged me in our interdepartmental chat, and you said, "Hey, did you get this email or whatever?" And I had no idea it was there. That is fixed in 10.9.1, so I'm having better luck there.
I mean, I'd rather take delayed mail over no mail. So.
Well, see, what I noticed is that what's so hard about this is Gmail is so bad as well, and Mac Mail was so bad that I could, for example, for 2 years now, I will get messages in all mail that don't show up in mail, and I have to either, like, someone will tell me and I'll search for them and I'll say, oh, it's in all mail but not in your inbox. I have zero filter set. There is no reason it should not be in my inbox but Google.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the best way of looking at this is 10.9.1 makes mail suck a little less. I wouldn't call it great though.
Yeah, I've never really called mail great. I used it because up until, Sparrow was abandoned for Mac when Google bought that, so that was kind of out the window. And then AirMail came around, and it's gotten a lot better with updates. At first, it was a little buggy, but if you use Gmail, just the send and archive features, just the way it handles is so much better. So for now, that's what I'm sticking with. I honestly have not opened Mail. I'm honestly kind of afraid to. So.
Yeah, Richard, have you had a chance to play around with 10.9.1 yet?
Honestly, I've not even loaded it up yet, so...
Is it better to wait?
Not.
Because some people wait to see what else it breaks.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of both. I wasn't really that... I don't use the Mail app anyway, so it wasn't trying to fix any problems that I was experiencing. I gave up on the Apple Mail app quite a long time ago. I've actually been using the Mail Pilot beta recently, and that's pretty good, but no, honestly, because I use Google Chrome all day, I generally just have a tab open for my email, and every 5 seconds at the moment. The number of new messages just goes up and up and up at the top. So it's probably the best solution I've got right now to making sure I actually get all the email on time.
Yeah.
Richard, have you had issues with MailPilot with it pulling mail? Because I feel like maybe I just have thousands of emails that I keep and archive instead of delete, but I feel like I move things to a list or I move it to something, and again, it's a public release. It's great for what it is, but they'll like randomly disappear, or I feel like it's trying to pull for messages that aren't there.
Yeah, I have no. I mean, it's been better than experiences with the stock mail app, but yeah, there has been a few blank moments, which is why I just generally keep a Gmail tab open right now, because it's about the best way I can guarantee I'm always going to get my mail. It's not ideal, but it works. So.
All right, so hopefully that will get fixed. We also have seen Apple has seeded iOS 7.1 Beta 2 to developers, and it's under NDA, so we can't really say exactly what's going on with there. But there's still a lot of stuff to be fixed in iOS 7. iOS 7, they had one of the shortest development cycles and most ambitious product plans in recent iOS history. One of the things I was curious about is an increasing number of people are telling me that they're turning off animations in accessibility, not because it gives them motion sickness, but because it's perceptively much faster. I haven't done that. I know a lot of people have. Have any of you guys tried doing that?
Yeah, mine are all turned off.
And?
I know that it probably doesn't give you faster response times, but sometimes perception is reality. So I turned them back on my iPad the other day, and I felt like it was slower. I know it wasn't, but I don't know. I just don't like them. And I feel like wallpapers play nicer with it off.
Well, because they don't have all the parallax moving around.
Yeah, it doesn't have to pat them as much for the motion. So it seems like with parallax enabled, it zooms it in. So no matter how you tilt it, it doesn't run out of image on the top, bottom, or sides. But if you turn that off, it doesn't have to pat it as much.
I leave mine on just because I actually enjoy the spatiality of zooming into folders, zooming out into applications, and I like the parallax. I like that sort of eye candy. I do remember when Vista came out, I turned it back to classic mode instantly because it just felt so slow to me. But iOS, especially on an iPhone 5S, feels fast enough that I haven't noticed a huge difference. Richard, do you leave it on, off?
I leave it on mainly because it's another thing I have to mess around with if I turn it off. But I do very much prefer the way it is on the iPhone rather than the iPad. So I'm not a big fan of the zooming in and out of the folders, because to me that felt kind of like the Vista thing. That kind of felt slow and like it was holding me back. But obviously with the iPhone, the fact that it just sort of, I don't really know what the best description for it is, but it just sort of fades in and out of the folders really, really quickly, and you're just there, and then you're not there. And I really like those, and I kind of hope that they move those across the iPad pretty soon.
Like portals, Peter. It reminds me of.
That's exactly right. Yeah, a little orange and blue.
So we've had the iPhone 5S going on 3 months. It'll be 3 months tomorrow. I really like the iPhone 5C, but I stuck with the iPhone 5S. I know a lot of people who stuck with the iPhone 5, and they're still perfectly happy. But 3 months later, I am so used to Touch ID now that to this day, if I go to an iPad, I'm still waiting a few seconds for Touch ID to kick in. I use it all the time. It works so fast that I don't even get to see my lock screen notifications anymore unless I remember to use the sleep wake button. The camera, unbelievable. Like the shots that I get off that camera, I don't think I could have gotten with an iPhone 5S. I could probably get with my Lumia 1020, but the Lumia 1020 is more of an expert. Like I have to feel like I have to do more. The optics require more work. There's less post-processing, where the iPhone, it feels like it doesn't matter what I throw at it, the chipset is going to fix stuff. And the 64-bit, a couple apps like DJ really benefit from it, but I like the fact that they're thinking towards the future, and that that phone seems to have so much room to grow. Maybe let's just go around the room. Ali, 3 months later, how are you enjoying your 5S?
I got both the 5C and the 5S. I really like both of them. I actually kind of prefer the way the 5C feels when you're holding it one-handed, But 5S definitely feature-wise. I get it irritated too when I pick up an iPad. I've actually disabled the passcode unless I'm out of the house on that, just because it, I act like I'm so inconvenienced by typing in a 4-digit code. But other than that, I really like it. I've stuck with the 5S, and I don't think I could go back. But 64-bit, I don't really use anything that I really see a difference, and I do think that's Apple future-proofing. 3-4 years down the line, it creates a lot less headache for developers to just support that. I'm happy with it. The only thing that I think is a little disappointing for me is the camera flash. I was really hoping that dual flash would do something different for night photography, and I still think it's pretty bad.
No, actually, I totally agree with everything that Ali just said, except for the flash part. I will disagree there. I think the flash is doing a great job, but my use case is a little bit different too. I don't really do a lot of night photography, but I do a lot of low light photography, and in that case, the low light photography I think is greatly improved with the iPhone 5S compared to the iPhone 5, which is what I was using before. Beyond that, the stuff where I'm really seeing the big benefit from 64-bit come is in gaming. When you get games like Infinity Blade 3, which is really well optimized for the A7, you've got a console quality experience almost, with the graphics and the texturing and so on. It's really an incredible experience. It's a lot of fun to play as well. But yeah, absolutely, Rene, the big home run for me, Touch ID. I cannot believe what a game changer this has been for me. And I, like you, get very frustrated when I use other iOS devices like my iPad and sit there and hover with my thumb over the home button, not understanding why it's not unlocking. That, more than anything, is actually what's holding up my purchase of a new iPad right now. I'm looking at the iPad Air and the iPad Mini with Retina display going, those are really nice, but they're missing the one killer feature that I would really love to have to make me totally love this thing. Maybe it's just a justification in my own mind.
I will say this, though. With iPads, it's a little different, and most of the reason I don't think it bothered me is because if you think about it, if you have any kind of case that has a sleeper magnet on an iPad, you don't really have to unlock it anyway, because when you lift that up, you know what I mean? It just goes right to the home. So, yeah, I guess it depends on whether or not you have a passcode and how often you have it to ask you. But for me, I always have a smart cover or a keyboard case or something on mine, so that's
a good point, Ali. Thinking about it, yes, I do have a passcode on mine, which is why it's so important to me. I lock all my devices because I don't want people staring at my stuff.
Yeah, I do when I leave at home. I'm just too impatient because I have them set to where they unlock or they lock immediately. So at home with the iPad, it's more of I don't really want to type in my passcode. On my phone, I keep it on all the time now. I used to take it off when I was at home.
And I know people at Apple feel the same way about having to type passcodes in like animals on their iPads, so hopefully eventually that problem will go away. Richard, how's the 5S treating you?
Well, like everybody else, I love Touch ID. I have some weird software bug that makes me have to put it in more often than I probably should have. But that's software, and they're the main issues I've had so far with the 5S are probably software bugs. So I can live with those because software has bugs and Apple can fix them. If there was something fundamentally wrong with the hardware, then that would be different. But I think one of the best things I can say about it is that it does nothing about it makes me want to go back to the old way, back to the iPhone 5. The battery life is at least as good. Arguably, if not better. I never really struggle to get through a day. Even when I'm out away from the house, I very rarely struggle to get to the end of the day on a full charge. The camera is just, as you guys have said, is superb. I mean, I took a vacation to New York with my wife recently, and it was basically my full camera. I've taken about 500 shots in 3 days in New York just with my iPhone because they were that good and I was that happy with them. That I had a camera with me that stayed in my suitcase because I just didn't need it, and got some really, really cracking shots, some good panoramas, and and I think the guts inside it as well shows, especially with the camera, because it's just so fast. I mean, I've got a Lumia 1020 again at the moment, and been speaking to a couple of guys recently who've asked if I know why the processing is so slow on the cameras, and it's because ultimately the camera takes these massive massive high-resolution photographs, but the hardware that's underneath the Windows Phone OS and the hardware constraints that's required for a phone like that doesn't allow it to do what ultimately the iPhone can do, and that's just rattle off massive chunks of photographs just one after the other and just crunch through them. So it's just, I said it when I've picked it up and used it for a couple of weeks, and it still maintains that it's the best phone I've used all year from anybody on any platform.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and I think, we talked about this before, how Nokia is doing fantastic things with cameras, but it's all on the optics end, and Apple wants to have the thinnest phone in the known universe, maybe several multiverses, so they're doing all this post-processing. What I saw that was really interesting, Peter, is the Qualcomm 64-bit tale, where first one of the Qualcomm guys is like, 64-bit is ridiculous, and then Qualcomm goes, no, we don't, he should never have said that. Then he gets quietly let go. And now there was word from Dan Lyons, the fake Steve Jobs of all people, that Qualcomm took it like a gut punch. And that's fascinating to me because, like we've discussed this before, Apple doesn't fab their own chips. They design them, but Samsung fabs them. Qualcomm can make their own chips. Intel can make their own chips. And yet Apple got to 64-bit first. They have the will and the desire to do it. Samsung could have made that chip 2 years ago. Qualcomm too. I think it's interesting that with stuff like Retina display. Now everyone has 1080p, but back then Retina display and 64-bit. Even though Apple doesn't control the manufacturing, they're still pushing that aspect of technology.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's important to understand that the 64-bit design isn't Apple's necessarily. I mean, we talk a lot about this being the Apple A7 chip because it is, but it's based on a design from ARM. It's based on a design from the fabless semiconductor designer that Apple has been working with for many years now, actually. Apple's relationship with ARM goes back to the old Newton message pad days. 64-bit was a great leap for Apple, and it's given them a lot of press. And it is, I think, setting the groundwork for iOS products in the future to have so much more growth potential in terms of what the software can do that's running on them than what we're able to do today. But yeah, according to Dan Lyon's story, it's left Qualcomm in the lurch and left them scrambling to come out with something. Even Samsung, has said, sort of as an aside, yeah, we're doing 64-bit. They're going to have 64-bit out, hopefully sometime in the first half of 2014. Qualcomm, though, it's going to take a little bit longer.
I think, too, that with the future-proofing, I mean, you don't see many phones stay relevant on the market as long as the iPhone has. So, I mean, you see what, they're still selling the 4S. So, and that's a, 4S, 3-year-old phone.
Yeah.
So, it makes it easier on developers, too, when they're not having to keep things compatible for 64-bit, 32-bit. You see that separation now with computers. You're just starting to see that go away. So, I think it makes sense for them to do that because 2-3 years down the road, that's probably also why they I guess they released the 5C, so you still have that, but starting with the 5S, they're ahead. So, and I think that phone will stay relevant a lot longer. You also have to look at, the aftermarket for phones, the secondary market. That's huge. Apple's been getting into that, and I think a lot of the reason for that is they hold their value so well. So the longer they stay relevant, the higher the value is, the better that market is too.
Not only the 4S, but also the 4 is still a currently supported model. You can drop iOS 7 on it, and on this podcast and elsewhere, I've poo-pooed the idea a little bit because I think it's kind of an edge case, and the 4 doesn't run it that well. But the bottom line is, it is supported. So, and the other thing is, this is not Apple's first time at this particular rodeo, right, Allie? Because they've done it before with the Mac when the Mac went from 32-bit to 64-bit. So they've got a lot of experience supporting developers with as seamless a transition as possible.
And iOS 7, I think, on the iPhone 4 is nowhere near iOS 4 on the iPhone 3G.
Oh, God.
Terrible. So I think Apple's learned from those mistakes.
Yeah.
And so I think they know it's almost, you see the difference in those separate binaries. I think it was iOS 7 that when I looked in the developer portal when they released the beta, I was like, whoa, the iPhone 4. I'm pretty sure the iPhone 4 bundle was significantly smaller than a lot of the other bundles. So I think they learned from their mistakes, and I think they made sure that they didn't, put too much in there that was gonna throw things off. But the look and the feel and the basics for developers, that was all there.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. So, we'll see going forward what this means, though. I mean, I don't think that the application is just there for games. Rene brought up DJ running qualitatively and quantitatively better on the new A7-based iOS devices compared to how they run on that before. And that's because, DJ is doing a lot of on-the-fly filter stuff. It's doing a lot of library management. It's doing a lot of real computationally intensive stuff that having a beefier processor can really help with. And I think that we're going to see more use cases in 64-bit machines coming forward, especially for professionals who are actually trying to get work done. There have been critics who have been saying since the iPad was introduced, it's a content consumption product, not a content creation product. That's just a bald-faced lie. There's no other way to put it except that, because a lot of people are doing a lot of serious professional work on these devices every day.
I think, too, I would agree with that, because I see how my workflow has changed. The first iPad, I don't feel really changed my workflow that much, but again, it takes developer support. It takes, the software side of things to really make that relevant, as well as accessories. So for me, like I've said in the past, keyboard cases, I use my iPad to write a ton. I know Richard does the same thing. I think he even thumb types sometimes on his Mini and does stuff for iMore.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But that's kind of the nature of the beast here. It's, you remember remarks that they said about the first iPhone, and you see where that went. So I feel the iPad is kind of the same way. I use it for a lot of things. I've gotten to the point now, I finally broke down and bought a camera kit for my iPad last year, and I found that I can do a lot of basic editing things on my iPad for iMore. We're still not to a point where you have content management systems that really allow, upload, download file systems like you do on a computer. So some stuff you really can't get away with yet. But for the most part, I can create my content and have it ready to upload or do whatever I need to do with it the minute I get home. I don't even have to do any of the work on my computer.
Absolutely. Now, the other thing about 64-bit that interests me is actually it's not really 64-bit as I understand. I've been educated on this recently. It's that that there are more registers inside as well. So it isn't just because it's 64-bit that it's grabbing such large chunks of data at a time. So the question that I've got, that I guess we'll just have to see what's going to happen further on down the road, is what this means in terms of what you can actually get done. Like, are we heading towards a future where you can actually use an iPad the same way that you can use a Mac for stuff like Final Cut Pro or apps like that? Or are we still, do you think, years away from that?
I don't know. Anyone who's ever used iMovie, it's a resource hog. It can be. And I think, honestly, it depends on how software developers package that in some cases, because you think of things differently when you're coding for a computer or when you're for a Mac platform, OS 10 in this case, or if you're coding for a mobile device. I've actually exported movie on both iMovie for OS 10 and iMovie or Final Cut Pro for that, or iMovie for iPad. And in my experience, I could take the same amount of video, and I guarantee you it's going to export quicker on my iPad. Probably because it's optimized for that. I'm not sure. And I have a solid state Mac. I have a newer one, so I know that's not the issue, but I do feel like the most recent version of iMovie is a lot more efficient than the most recent version of iMovie for OS 10. I know, Richard, you did some stuff in iMovie too, didn't you?
Yeah, I wonder if you've broken something, honestly, because see, I've used iMovie for the previous, this obviously the new version and the previous version, and it's just because I'm tired. I'm not that creative, and I don't want to pay for Final Cut Pro, but the old iMovie for Mac was horrifically slow for me on the same laptop that I'm running it on now. It was just slow and clunky, and it seemed to take forever to export videos from, and actually now I'm really happy that I exported a 1080p video today that just it flew through. Importing, exporting all seems to be a lot smoother with the new version, and I've also put the iPad version through its paces. When I reviewed the newest version, I actually shot the video using an iPhone, used the camera kit that you mentioned earlier to transfer the video from that to the iPad, edited the whole thing, and yeah, it's by no means perfect, and there are things missing, and it's a kind of casual solution to a problem. But I mean, for the likes of us, for example, if we're out and about at a trade show, pounding the trade show floors, and you just want to catch a quick video of it, you've got a great camera on the iPhone, you've got iMovie on the iPad, just plug it all in, and it is optimized. And yeah, I wouldn't rely on it so heavily on an older device, because again, tried it on things in the past and I wasn't that impressed. But it's definitely that sort of thing's definitely taken a step forward. And unlike you, I used to use the original iPad to do basic photo editing, and it was just kind of horrible back then. And we've come along so far in however many years it's been. It's not that long, so who knows where we might be in another 4 or 5 years with it.
Yeah, I'd agree. I see iMovie for Mac, the new version, I do agree with that. It's a lot faster. I was very surprised. I thought something was wrong. The first video I exported was like maybe 12 to 15 minutes long, and I was like, there's no way that's done. It like popped up, and I'm like, no way. I watched it thinking like it cut off or something, because it exported so fast. The iPad version, for some reason it's a little bit quicker than for me still, but again, like you said, that probably is due to the fact that it is a scaled down version. It's not anything near, but to put together a quick little thing, it works.
Yeah, if you guys listening and watching out there haven't tried it, I would definitely recommend downloading it, especially if you've got a new device, because it's, of course, free now. Hey, Richard, I got a question for you. You're in the UK. Have you ever gotten a gift from anybody, like from Amazon, from another country?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I have. International Amazon gift cards work beautifully, providing they're selected in the correct currency that I can spend over here, yes.
So have you ever had that happen in iTunes, though?
No.
Right.
No.
Yeah, Rene wrote a really interesting piece yesterday entitled, "Why Can I Gift Internationally with Amazon but Not iTunes?" And he was talking about this very issue. The reason why is because Apple just enabled iBooks gifting just in time for the holidays. Do you guys use iBooks a lot, or are you more dependent on other ebook readers?
PDFs. I use it for PDFs, and that's it. I've never really found it. I like Kindle. Again, I can loan a book to Richard. I can do whatever I want with a Kindle account. I can loan books. I can gift books, regardless whether you live in Canada or next door to me. So I've never really felt a need to switch from iBooks. The lending feature is what got me.
Very interesting. Yeah, I'm a big Kindle fan too, and I've used them all. I've used Kindle, I've used Nook, I've used iBooks. I've even used some of the open standards readers for EPUB and for PDF as well, just to give them a try, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. And they're all good in their own ways, but Kindle is what I keep coming back to because it's tied into the Amazon ecosystem. I find that the books are cheaper. The books that I'm looking for are often there, and they're not in iBooks. I can't help but feel like iBooks just isn't fully baked sometimes.
I would feel the same way. It's convenient for PDF storage, so things that I need to store or save and want quick access to from my email, I stick them in there quickly because it's easy. But for books I actually want to read, I stick with Kindle. I've thought about picking up a Paperwhite just because, I don't know, I'm interested in that, I guess. It's the first e-reader I've actually ever been interested in. But on my iPad, it works fine. I actually prefer the interface of Kindle over iBooks, too, when I'm reading. Sometimes in iBooks, I felt like if I had my hands on the side, and maybe it's an issue with the iPad Air because the sides are so small, I feel like I'll accidentally touch the screen and the page will flip, where I don't feel like the Kindle app at least isn't that sensitive. So I don't find myself doing that on accident as much.
Speaking of the Kindle, there was an interesting article that came out recently that said that Kindle owners are actually more likely to spend money than just regular Amazon shoppers, and that's probably one of the reasons why Amazon sells the Kindle so cheaply. It's your gateway drug into the Amazon ecosystem. Would you agree with that, Richard?
Absolutely. It's kind of, obviously we've seen they've extended the Kindle line to include tablets as well. And I think that's kind of a natural progression. You're getting people in at the bottom, you're getting on that Kindle. It's just like people buying an iPhone or an iPad. They buy a Kindle, they don't differentiate between Kindle Paperwhite, Kindle Fire. It's just the next thing up. And as you get to the Kindle Fires, they throw in a bit of video as well, a bit of a music store, and before you know it, you're already in that ecosystem. But I think the best thing for me with Kindle is that it's cross-platform, so I can take it anywhere. I can take my books anywhere, but I think Apple's kind of missing a trick a little bit just across the system with going back to the gifting across different countries, because if you've got a relative, they've got they're not necessarily tech savvy. There's going to be a lot of people who pick up an iPad as a main computing device. Whether they've got the iBooks app downloaded or not, the iBook store is baked in there. And you can send somebody a Kindle book, you can send somebody an Amazon voucher, but there's some kind of effort required on their end. They've got to go and download the Kindle app. They've got to have an Amazon account and all this, that, and the other. Whereas if they've got an iPad, they've already got all the stuff they need. So I'm sure there's reasons behind it as to why Apple doesn't do it, but I do think they're missing a trick.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be. But, as Rene points out in his editorial, doing these deals internationally for content is very difficult. And Apple, I think has a more difficult situation than most because they're such a dominant force in so many markets, because they really own the digital music market in some fundamental ways. Look at what they did this past week with Beyonce's new release. They're responsible for a huge amount of record sales because it's so easy just to download stuff from iTunes, and it always has
every slot on featured on the main iTunes page.
What's up with that? Somebody in Apple's curation team for iTunes went a little crazy.
And then Target said, "We're not going to carry it now. iTunes sold so many, there's no point in us carrying it."
I don't know. So
Target has bigger problems today, though, so I'm not going to make fun of them too much.
There we go. So, does anybody here have like a really old MacBook or like an iMac G5 lying around, like 2008 or earlier?
Yes.
I don't have any non-Intel anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah, I think I do.
Well, even the first generation of Intel stuff, the Intel Core Duo and Core 2 Duo, before, like for example, the MacBook went polycarb, or before it went unibody, it was a little bit squarer than the one that came after it. Anyway, it turns out that those machines have an exploit that these two researchers at Johns Hopkins University have discovered, and it turns out that the microprocessor on the iSight circuitry itself can be reprogrammed in such a way that you can actually shut off the illumination LED that tells you when the camera is working. So they demonstrated this with proof of concept software that is spyware. It enables people to capture a video stream from your iSight camera without the iSight camera giving you any indication that it's working.
Well, wasn't there a case where a kid hacked his schoolmate's computer and took pictures of her and then tried to extort money out of her using something similar to this?
Miss Teen USA. It happened to her, as she was actually using a MacBook, I believe. So yeah, no, it's absolutely out there. But the interesting thing is, how did it get on there? Because if you install software on your Mac, you're prompted. You're prompted to enter an administrative password, and I assume that you know what it is that you're actually clicking on when you install software. So how could somebody get this malware installed surreptitiously?
Social engineering, Peter. No defense.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Like
social engineering is no defense. Yeah, exactly. There we go, Allie.
Don't turn it on. Don't turn it on.
So
somebody
here's my
could
question,
be looking
though.
at you right now.
Disappear for 2 seconds and show up with a 10-year-old MacBook Pro.
Here's my question, though. I mean, they say that it only works on older MacBooks, but it might be theoretically possible on new ones. And for me, once that that bond of trust is broken, like, you never know. You might be patient zero. You might be the first one. Am I going to have to go all Andy Ihnatko and put tape over my cameras now?
You know what? Look, I discount that, okay? An asteroid might strike the Earth tomorrow and wipe out all life.
Peter, what are you doing to me?
Right, exactly. There could be a solar flare. Godzilla could rise out of the ocean tomorrow. You know, a lot of things might happen, but you know what? Nobody has demonstrated that new machines have any kind of exploit.
Snowden gives me the all clear.
Well,
I mean, if it makes you feel better at night, just buy a roll of duct tape.
Or close your laptop lid.
My point is the absence of proof is not proof in and of itself. You know, it's incumbent upon the security researchers who are saying, yeah, new machines might have an exploit in them to prove that there is an exploit before they go around saying that there could be an exploit. You know, a lot of things might happen. Show me the proof. Show me the money.
So you're still going to cha-cha full Monty in front of your MacBook with no regard for humanity, Peter?
Absolutely. And, you know, anybody who's watching the video stream has nobody but themselves to blame.
Don't
that's the thing. So
random links from Peter.
No, but here's the thing, and this is something we all struggle with as journalists, is what do you report to inform your audience, and how do you phrase it to avoid panic? Because a lot of times security exploits, we saw this one earlier from Kaspersky about, I forget what the exploit was, but it was Safari, but 2 versions ago, and you know, it became a panic, and I had people asking me about it, and it doesn't apply to most people, but it's reported as a sensational headline, and I think, you know, to Peter's point, it's the responsibility of journalists conveying the information to make sure that people are informed but not panicked by it.
Absolutely. And I mean, I threw a healthy dose of skepticism in my coverage on this because I really think that it earns it, because they even say in their paper, you know, look, it is non-trivial for the software to get installed, and Apple has these roadblocks that prevent the software from doing anything, like Gatekeeper. So, you know, they note that there is an exploit there, but they're the first ones to responsibly say it's tough to install. So why, you know, the 99,000 other web outlets didn't report this with a little dose of skepticism, I don't know, but I'm a little pissed off that they didn't. Because,
shame on them.
You know, it's just typical stuff.
It's like those cascading ifs when you get in somewhere. If someone has physical possession of your iPhone, and if it is jailbroken, and if that you haven't changed the root password, and if all these things happen to be true, they might be able to forcibly install Hello Kitty wallpaper.
That's exactly right. Or, you know,
if that might be.
If they lift a fingerprint, and if they've got a latex, you know, kit that enables them to manufacture a fingerprint.
And 16 things that no one even has in their home at any given point in time.
Who? Yes, CSI, your neighbor.
That's right.
Is that it for our news?
You know, I don't think I'm leaving anything out.
Awesome. All right. So, Ali.
Oh, the Apple TV ad.
Oh, the new commercial. I'm gonna through the miracles of editing, I'm gonna insert it as we talk about it so people can see it. And I'm gonna throw it right back at you, Peter, because you have teenage children. And this is the controversy as I understood it. I thought the ad was great. It was touching, brought a little tear to my eye, because it's a child who, for some reason, is disenfranchised and disassociating from his family, spending all his time with his iPhone. If you want, depending on your background and your own experiences, you could imagine he's on the autistic or Asperger's spectrum, or you can just imagine that it's some sort of social problem between him and his family, but it looks like he's in the periphery of his family unit for the holidays. But it turns out, in this commercial called Misunderstood, that he's been filming everything, and his grandparents happen to have an Apple TV, and he surprises the entire family with a beautiful video highlighting all the aspects of Christmas they thought he was annoying. And I get that, you know, it's better to put the phone down and be part of the family, but I think that is not I think that this strikes a chord because so many of us have dealt with teenagers or have been teenagers who did not feel part of the family at some point.
You have to be a teenager?
I'm still like that.
You know, it's a beautiful little piece, and it's a complete story from start to end. And any way you slice it, it's a nice piece of cinema, and it's a nice piece of storytelling. I thought it was beautifully done. But yeah, I mean, you know, I've got 3 kids who go to these family functions and would just as soon have their faces buried in their iPads or their 3DSs as actually having a conversation with somebody in the room. So I can totally identify as a parent of you know, teenagers like that with the sort of you see the dad looking annoyed every time he catches sight of his son, playing with his phone, and sort of increasingly throughout the ad, he's getting more and more annoyed.
Throws a sock at him.
Right, exactly. So
I think you see it with adults and kids. We have a thing where it's kind of a running joke, but it's kind of sad. We have almost every holiday we've ever had as a family with Heather's family. There's a picture floating around that someone took of like 6 of us sitting at the table, all of us on phones or iPads. So that's like a picture that's circulated, and it's not something that happens the whole time, but at some point during a family function, there's always a picture that's taken of everyone sitting on devices, and the rest of the time we're like, get off your phone. So
it works on that level, but it also works on the level of sort of being an instruction, to people who are using these devices, saying, hey, look, you've got your face buried in your device. Use it to capture the moment. Use it to be part of the experience. So that's why it works for me, and maybe I'm just overanalyzing it. It's that's entirely possible as well, but it works, I think, on a couple of different levels, and that's why it's called Misunderstood. But it's a classic piece of work, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it up for an advertising award next year.
It's experiential, Richard. That's the thing I like about it, is Apple's getting back, like their best commercials, whether it's the everyday photographer or the technology is not enough Peter Coyote ad, has been about the experience of using something and not the specs or processors or software. And I think that's where this strikes a chord, because it's showing you how this helps or enables everyday life.
Yeah, I mean the technology that we're buying and using should enrich our lives, not take it over, and I think that's kind of ties in with the misunderstood thing. The kid looks like he's just out there and just buried in his device all the time, but it's not. It's enriching his life, and ultimately at the end it comes out and he's done something really nice for the family, and that's what we get from Apple's best ads. Like you say, it's never about the hardware, it's never about the specs. It's always about what you can do, how this is going to make your day better, how this is going to make you do something for your family, how basically you're going to buy your iPhone, you're going to buy your iPad, and it makes something better for you and those around you.
Makes Granny cry. And I'm sorry, but I don't care that he was holding it in portrait the whole time, and the video miraculously is shot in landscape.
I knew someone was going to say that. I knew it.
It spells the reveal. Like it is theater. It's not a reality show, and reality shows aren't even real. Like if you don't understand that reality shows are edited to make them more outrageous, then there's a lot of Wikipedia reading for you to do tonight. But that sells the ad. I'm not gonna analyze. I think that would be overanalyzing it. Peter is breaking it down frame by frame for that. But I think as a piece of theater, it works. Apple is back on the track. I just wish they would do another iPad commercial that is as good as this one, because all the good ones lately have been iPhone commercials.
Absolutely, yeah. No, so kudos to Apple, and contrast that against the absolutely bizarre Nokia ad for their new tablet.
Oh my God, Tim Burton in a barber shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes.
Boy.
All right, so we have some holidaying to do. I will not keep you any longer. Ali Kazmuhov, people want to see more of your work. If they want to find you on Twitter and the socials, where do they go?
I am, of course, on iMore every day. I am at iMuggle on all of the things social, Twitter, Instagram, all of the things.
Richard Devine, where can they find you?
On iMore every day, of course, and on the socials at Ricka666.
Peter?
Let's see, on iMore, of course, and on Twitter at Flarg, Flargh, and in the bushes outside your house. Yes, you.
He's making a Christmas video, though, so it's not creepy.
Do you even need to use the bush excuse anymore if you have an iSight camera exploit you can use?
Mine's going to be entitled "Not Misunderstood at All."
You can find me at Rene Ritchie. You can find all of our shows at mobilenations.com. We had Matt Drance, former Apple evangelist, talking about how Apple does marketing on Vector last week. Benedict Evans about the lower-cost smartphone market this week. We had Vicky Murley, former Safari technology evangelist at Apple, on Debug last week. And on Iterate coming up tonight, we have Flinto, and then next week we have Justin Williams. So make sure you keep track of all of that, mobilenations.com. Guys, have a great evening, and everyone listening to this podcast, have happy holidays. Please spend it recording with your iPhone or not recording it with your iPhone as you see fit. Bye.